It seems like a lifetime ago the Red Bull were the dominant force in the sport, threatening a third straight season of absolute dominance. But in reality, we're only a few months ahead of that now distant feeling time. So recent was it the Red Bull seemed uncatchable that they still sit pretty convincingly at the top of both championships. Hell, even Perez is somehow in the top 6 of the championship, despite his form feeling like it's been in the mud for the whole year. It's a fickle sport, both on and off track, and it's easy to forget just how quickly things change, but my oh my, just how fast have Red Bull fallen off. It's now taking the full capacity of Max Verstappen's talent to keep Red Bull up on the podium positions, and it's clear that the team has taken a massive dip as his teammate is no longer being afforded the luxury of having a car half a second faster than the rest of the field, and even then, when he did have a car like that, he was still being pushed all the way to finish second in the Drivers' Championship, and even failed to do so in 2022's rocket ship. So then, everyone outside of Red Bull has come to the conclusion that what Red Bull needs is a better driver in the second seat. After all, it's Sergio who's struggling and seems to be a shadow of the pre-Miami Checo. But is that really the case? To us, Checo is just a distraction from the real issues at Red Bull, and while it wouldn't hurt to have someone more consistent in that second seat, could the driver who takes it up be taking a poisoned chalice? Want to know why dropping Perez won't actually change much at Red Bull? Yeah, they may score better in the constructors, but there's something bone deep going on at the Milton Keynes team. And stick around, because if Red Bull keep going down this path, then they may well lose more than just the constructors. If you cast your mind back to this time last year, there was a fair amount of buzz in the paddock about what would be a pretty normal and unassuming tyre test. There was an underperforming driver who just wasn't showing the progress the team needed, and there was an exciting man from down under set to take the testing at the Pirelli tyre test. Okay, I'll stop being so obscure. This is the second year in a row where a testing day could mean the difference in multiple drivers' careers. For Liam Lawson, it's a chance to prove, as if he needed to prove anything else after Zandvoort onwards last year, that he belongs in one of the Red Bull family seats. For Daniel Ricciardo, it's a chance to punch back up into the main team after a decent run of results, something which we think could solve more than just the missing man in the Red Bull number 2 car. And for Sergio Perez, this time of year is his chance to lose it all. So I think it's best if we give a bit of context for those who have been under a rock for a while. Sergio Perez has scored just 11 points in 5 races, in a car that has at the very least been in the top 3 quickest cars on the grid, and that's being generous to Checo. In a lot of these races, Red Bull has been the fastest car, and Max Verstappen, even with the chasing pack, has maintained and even extended his lead in the Drivers' Championship. Meanwhile, the sister team to Red Bull, VCarb, is no longer hosting a plethora of potential main team drivers just waiting for their opportunity to come where they can step up into the main team. Instead, they're holding a driver that Red Bull don't truly believe in, and a driver that they do, but for reasons that are slightly lost on some of us watching on. If we want to cut all emotions and bias, there is a clear reason why Red Bull have Ricciardo in the second team, beyond the hopes that he suddenly resurrects the prime honey badger of yesteryear. And it's the exact same reason that they're giving Perez every possible opportunity to prove Red Bull right in their decision to keep him on for 2025. And that is that sweet sponsor dollar. So potent is said dollar that it appears to be causing Red Bull to look past just how dismal Perez has been this year, with Martin Brundle putting it best, saying, "We know that it's commercially attractive to them. We know that he's a good foil for Max. He's normally fast enough to do a good job and bring some relevant information, not fast enough to bother Max particularly, and it works for them, and they have won both championships. But all of a sudden, they've got some rivals on their hands, and they can't comfortably win the Constructors' title without Sergio being on tip-top form. But with the sponsorship, with Red Bull's commerciality in North and South America, with the Mexican Grand Prix yet to come, would you really not want Sergio Perez on the grid? So that's the balancing point. If he was driver B and none of that nationality or commerciality mattered, they would have replaced him, let's be honest. However, it seems that there is a breaking point where malperformance is no longer forgivable in favor of that Kit Kat Müller, and it appears that it is fast approaching for Checo, with Christian Horner acknowledging that Perez needs to pick up the pace. He knows it's unsustainable to not be scoring points. We have to be scoring points in that car. He knows his role and target. Nobody is more eager than Checo to find his form again. However, it seems that Checo potentially has just a few races left in his Red Bull career if things go unchecked, which seems insane given he only signed a 1+1 extension on his deal just a couple of months ago. God, I can already hear the Checo fans in the comments section going, "Oh, you just hate Checo, leave my boy alone." Well, maybe if he started performing better, we would leave him alone. So this has become apparent as, if rumor is to be believed, there is an exit clause within that contract which requires him to be within a set amount of points of Verstappen at both the summer break and the end of the season. Now, unless that total is somehow nearly 150 points away, which it is rumored to be a mere 100, it's hard to see him being within the necessary range to guarantee him staying on at the team. So given Lawson has done a filming day at Silverstone and the general noises coming out have been pretty positive, is there a chance that he could be the one to step up in the event that Perez fails to improve in the next few races? Well, no. Or at least he can, but it would only fix one of Red Bull's problems, of which they would have two that the second seat would need to fix upon Checo being dropped if that were to happen. The first is one that Lawson could potentially do, and that's be quick enough to bolster their constructors' standing. The second issue is the money that Red Bull will be missing upon losing Checo's sponsors, something which another driver would be able to lessen the severity of while standing a decent enough chance of stepping up in terms of points, and that man is Daniel Ricciardo. I know, it's a hell of a lot less exciting than Lawson stepping up on the merits of last year's heroics and an unignorable filming day performance. However, it could actually benefit both drivers in the long run. For Daniel, it offers him the opportunity to complete his arc and end his career in the main Red Bull team, as someone that provides a decent wad of cash to the team and scoring steady points while also not being too big of a threat to Verstappen. For Liam, it grants him a Formula 1 seat at VCARB, and at the very least gives him a season or two's experience to prove that he should be the one in the main team at the turn of the regulations in 2026. Even if he doesn't move up quickly, he will still be on the grid and gaining necessary experience to be the man to potentially lead Red Bull in the future if Max decides to walk away from the team or the sport entirely. And that's something that the Milton Keynes team will really need to make sure they're ready for. As we say, there is more than one way that Max may decide to one day leave Red Bull, whether due to his known disliking of the upcoming regulations and ambitions that lay elsewhere, or due to the rumored, and yet still fairly unsubstantiated, growing dissatisfaction with Red Bull both on and off the track. The team at the very least seem to have reached a plateau with the rest of the teams catching up to the previously dominant world champions. However, Max isn't willing to just accept that the team is doomed to fall backwards into the jaws of the chasing pack, saying this at the start of the recent triple header in regards to the team seemingly failing to maintain their early season advantage. We could say, yes, it's normal. I don't think it's normal. We have to keep working hard. If we think this is normal, people are going to overtake us. Every day I'm working with the engineers, and I also try and push for updates to come earlier. As we have said, it's not necessarily just because of the on-track issues, with the early season drama behind the scenes still running hot between his dad and team principal. But regardless of the issue that causes Max to walk away, would Red Bull really be ready for it? We have to say, based on how they've handled themselves so far this year under Oliver Mintzlaff's leadership, the answer to that is a resounding no. As it stands, Max is filling in the cracks with yet more fantastic performances, but that isn't going to last forever, especially with it becoming harder for the Dutchman to make up the deficit. For the time being, Checo's future, as well as the futures of Lawson and Ricciardo, is in his hands, and he now has the final races before the summer break to prove himself. However, the damage may be done, and the wheels of change may already be turning, much to the dismay of those biased Checo fans.